What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the One Man Startup. Today's episode 3, is going to be talking about the actual app idea. So, we're going to discuss, in the last episode, we discussed how to brainstorm ideas, how to come up with a great idea, and today we're going to talk about the idea that we're going to do on this channel, the app idea that we're going to use to build out the app for One Man Startup of this series. All right, so what I did was I went through basically kind of the process that was discussed in the last video. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. So I started by listing out all my hobbies and likes. So a few things that I wrote down were, and I'll show you the sheet. A few things I wrote down were hobbies. Okay, so under my hobbies and likes, I wrote travel, reading, coffee, tech, podcast, deep conversation. I mean, as you can see, I just went down, basically filled up about half a page going down the list of like my likes, and I just wrote those down. I tried to think. I kind of already want to do something in travel, so that was number one, and then I did write down a bunch more, but I'm kind of stuck on travel right now. So then in the next column, the second column over, I just kind of wrote the problems or complaints that I see that other people have. So we definitely want to solve a problem with the app. So basically, I have the hobby, and then I want to kind of match that with a problem I see in that hobby or in that like. So, for instance, like with travel, a lot of times people complain about money or budget, or for me myself, it's sometimes hard to get the money for a certain trip or know how much I need to save for a certain trip, depending on the location, stuff like that. Another problem that I found with travel is remembering exactly where I went on a trip, or remembering exactly where I ate, what restaurants I was at, the names of cities, especially when they're like very foreign sounding. It's kind of hard sometimes to remember all those, especially if you go on a quick trip. Like, let's say you go on a trip to, Vietnam. So you're in like Southeast Asia, and you're in Vietnam at first, and you're there maybe for like 4 or 5 days, and then you like pop over to Thailand for another 4 or 5 days. So it's like overall the trip was maybe a week or 10 days. But and it depends on the type of travel you do, but if you travel and you try and like see as much as you can in those small amount of time, you might breeze through a country and kind of like start to forget like the places you saw and the places you were at. So that's another problem I think that I've found personally. I did also put trends, and this is kind of funny because I actually wrote this yesterday morning, and iOS actually just came out with like dark mode is like their big thing, so the trend is there. But in the App Store, when I wrote this down, I saw this trend in the App Store because scrolling through it had apps that look good in dark mode, so that was a trend. And now obviously Apple's going to be pushing that even bigger, so potentially we'll do the app in dark mode and light mode, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, going down the list, you can see like other things, like it's just the hobby, and then it's kind of a complaint. Now the complaint isn't a full idea. It's just basically like the complaint or the problem is not a full idea. That's what needs to be solved. So that's what the app needs to solve. So, I mean, you can see kind of like what I was thinking as I wrote down these hobbies and problems, but I decided I'm definitely going to do the travel budget app. So what that's going to look like is it's going to be a pretty simple app, right? And the main thing I want it to do is be able to tell me my budget for a location. So if I'm in Washington, D.C. for like 5 days, I have like a 5-day trip to D.C. planned, I want to know prior to going there what I think my budget's going to be day to day, and kind of break it down as much as I want. So I could, at the highest level, just say, I have $100 a day budget. Or I could break it down more and say I have $50 to spend on hotel, $25 to spend on food, $25 to spend on entertainment. That would be the choice of the user of the app. Or you could just say I have $100 to spend a day in DC. I want it to be day by day. So I want the budget to be daily, a daily budget. And I want you to be able to input it for a trip that's up and coming, so a trip that hasn't happened yet. And then while you're on the trip or after the trip, you can put in how accurate your budget was versus what you spent. It's not going to link up to your bank account. It's just going to be you inputting numbers. But the key here is that it needs to be like super simple and easy to input that information in, because I did my research as well, which was what we talked about in the last episode. The research in the apps. There are obviously a lot of budget apps. I mean, I don't know if anybody uses any. If you have, put it in the comments what app you used and why you like it or don't like it. But I wasn't able to find anything where I could kind of get a nice daily budget that was specific to traveling, and that would like relate to one location. And then, I mean, I guess the overall goal of this is I can track my budget like that on a daily basis per location. But I also want to be able to then kind of gauge of like what cities are more expensive and least expensive. Or in other words, like I want to know how much I spent in DC, and then I want to know how much I spent in San Diego, and then I want to know how much I spent on all these different locations I go to. And then over time, I'll be able to tell, like, oh, like when I go to San Diego, I spend like $300 a day. But when I'm in DC, I spend like, $150 a day. So then over time, when you're like, this is gonna be good, and potentially have like share options in here where we can like see other people's average budget for cities, for locations. So basically I could go in the app then and see, like, say I'm going to go to Denver, Colorado. And I'm saying all places in the US, but this will be global. This will work everywhere. If I'm having an up and coming trip to Denver, I can look in on Denver and check what other people have put. And this would be really cool. Check what other people have put as their daily budget for Denver, and then if they over or underspent. This will help you in a few ways. So you're going to be able to tell yourself up and coming before the trip. You're going to be able to say, I want to save, I'm going on a 5-day trip and I want to budget $100 a day. So I need $500. And $100 is like cheap. That's like, I guess, driving to a place. But for the sake of this example, that's going to be the first benefit, right? So you're going to know how much you need to save for a trip. The second thing is when you're on the trip, you'll be able to, when you're on the trip or after the trip, you'll be able to update that estimate with the actual prices, right? So you'll be able to say, okay, I actually spent $200 this day and I spent, $50 this day. Maybe it evens out for your trip in total. That's great then. That would be like a successful trip, it would be written on the app as like a properly budgeted trip. Or you're over budget or under budget. And then depending on if you're over or under budget, your trip would be marked as, like, ooh, high roller, or like, oh, you like were really good and saved a lot of money this trip. And then I could like roll over into another trip. The other thing is that comparing budgets. So we will be able to compare our budgets with the budgets of other people. And how that'll be valuable is before you go on a trip. If you're planning a trip, you can see like, oh, most people budget, in this city, most people budget, $200 a day. So I'm going to do that as well, or I'm going to try and do it cheaper. And then right now it's only going to be budgeting. That's going to be like this version 1. I mean, we'll see how quickly we can get through this, but potentially even we'll put like hidden, or not hidden, but we'll put like the best value that you found in a certain place. So almost like you could put like, for each trip you go on, you could put like one place that was like the highest value, or you could put one place that was like, the most expensive that you didn't think was worth it. I don't want it to get into like a ratings app where you're like rating places or, giving reviews on places. Like I don't want it to be like Yelp in that way, but potentially there could be like one, for yourself, you can keep obviously all notes. There'll be like ways for you to keep track of every place you went. And I kind of also want it to be in the style of like a scratch map. The scratch maps where you like scratch off a country and it tells you like it's like a whole picture of the globe and you scratch off a country and then you like can see everywhere you've been in the world. I kind of want it to be like that, but it'll be kind of like everywhere you've spent money in the world is kind of going to be how you're going to budget it. And then at like a glance view, like you'll be able to see like at an overhead view, you'll be able to see, obviously you'll be able to see like your monthly spending, your monthly budget, but I don't want this to really be a budget app for anything but traveling. So I don't want you to put in, or the goal of this is not to be used for, you know, saving up for a new car or paying off the student loans. Like, it's not going to be for anything like that. It's only going to be for traveling, trips, and anything to do with traveling, like flights, all that stuff. But yeah, so it's basically a travel budgeting app. And it's gonna be real easy to use, well designed, really simple, and it's gonna solve that problem of the main problem that I wanted to solve is getting people to understand that they can go do a trip, that they can go travel, that they can go travel for cheaper than they think, you know. And yeah, that's the base of the idea right there. Now, as we go into the next phase, we're going to learn. As we go into the next phase, we're obviously going to add all the details to it, all the features. But in a general sense, the app we're going to build for One Man Startup is going to be a travel budgeting app. And that's it. That's it right there. The next step, really the first step, well, the second step, because now we got our idea locked down. So we got that first 5% out of the way. The next phase we're going to move into is design. And we definitely want to design first. And we're going to start with wireframing, right? So check me out in the next video. Episode 4 is going to be all about wireframing this design out. And yeah, all right. Excited about this. Travel Budget App 2019. We're going to finish this in 1 month. Subscribe and follow along. Leave comments in the bottom if you have any ideas, any comments to add, obviously. All right. Yep. Ciao for now.